The sound of distant cannons echoed through the narrow streets of Toulon, a port city gripped by revolution and chaos. Amid the smoke and clamor, a young artillery officer moved with purpose, his sharp eyes calculating every detail. This was Napoleon Bonaparte, a man whose ambition was as vast as the turbulent era that surrounded him. In the midst of France's darkest hours, a storm was brewing, one that would shake the foundations of Europe and forever change the course of history. Born on the island of Corsica in 1769, Napoleon's beginnings were modest but marked by fierce determination. His family was of minor nobility, but their status was precarious amid the shifting politics of Corsica, which had recently been annexed by France. From an early age, Napoleon distinguished himself in military academies on the mainland, mastering strategy and tactics with an intensity that hinted at his future greatness. The French Revolution erupted when Napoleon was just 20, tearing the country apart in a wave of violence and uncertainty. The monarchy had fallen, and France was in chaos. But amid the upheaval, opportunity awaited those bold enough to seize it. Napoleon's genius lay not only in his military skill, but in his ability to navigate the treacherous political currents of the time. By 1793, young Bonaparte had earned his first major success during the Siege of Toulon. The city had been seized by royalist forces and British allies who opposed the revolution. Napoleon's strategic brilliance in organizing the artillery assault turned the tide, forcing the enemy to surrender. His rise was swift, and his name began to spread throughout France as a symbol of hope and strength. But ambition can be a double-edged sword. The political factions within revolutionary France were fractious and suspicious. Napoleon learned early that military victory alone would not secure power. He needed the backing of influential allies and a carefully crafted image. His charisma and confidence earned him favor with key leaders, and by the late 1790s, he was poised to make a decisive move. In 1796, Napoleon was appointed commander of the French Army of Italy, tasked with leading a campaign against Austria and its allies. What followed was nothing short of astonishing. Through daring maneuvers, innovative tactics, and relentless determination, Napoleon led his forces to a series of stunning victories, conquering vast territories and humiliating his enemies. His Italian campaign was a masterclass in warfare and cemented his reputation as France's most brilliant general. Yet his success extended beyond the battlefield. Napoleon was a master of propaganda, carefully shaping his image as a heroic liberator of oppressed peoples. He issued proclamations promising reforms and justice, winning the loyalty of the populations he conquered. His military genius was matched by his political savvy, and the power he amassed made him the most influential figure in France. In 1799, as political instability rocked Paris, Napoleon seized his moment. Returning from Italy, he orchestrated a coup d'état that dismantled the existing government and established the consulate, with himself as first consul, effectively the ruler of France. His ascent from artillery officer to the nation's supreme leader was meteoric, but the challenges ahead would test his resolve like never before. Napoleon moved quickly to stabilize France. He enacted the Napoleonic Code, a legal framework that streamlined laws, reinforced property rights, and curtailed privileges based on birth. The code became one of his most enduring legacies, influencing legal systems far beyond France's borders. He also reformed education, administration, and finance, forging a centralized state that wielded tremendous power. However, Napoleon's vision was not limited to internal reform. He sought to expand France's influence across Europe and create an empire that would rival the ancient Roman Republic. His coronation as emperor in 1804 was both a symbol of his ambition and a dramatic assertion of his authority. In a move that stunned many, Napoleon crowned himself, signaling that his power came not from the church or tradition, but from his own will. The years that followed were marked by a series of military campaigns known collectively as the Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon's armies swept through Europe, defeating coalitions of monarchies determined to halt his advance. His tactics were revolutionary, emphasizing speed, surprise, and the effective use of artillery and infantry in coordinated attacks. He reshaped the political map of Europe, installing allies and relatives as kings and princes. Yet beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. The constant warfare drained France's resources and strained its people. Resistance movements and nationalist uprisings erupted in occupied territories. Even Napoleon's closest allies grew wary of his relentless ambition. His failure to fully defeat Britain, which commanded the seas, was a persistent thorn in his side. The turning point came in 1812 with the invasion of Russia. Napoleon amassed a vast army, hoping to force Tsar Alexander I into submission. But the Russian campaign was a catastrophe. The harsh winter, scorched earth tactics by retreating Russian forces and stretched supply lines decimated the Grande Armée. The retreat from Moscow became a symbol of hubris and miscalculation. From that moment, Napoleon's fall accelerated. The coalition of European powers united against him, and after a series of defeats, he was forced to abdicate in 1814 and exiled to the island of Elba. But the story did not end there. In 1815, Napoleon escaped Elba and returned to France for a final dramatic chapter known as the 100 Days, a last bid for power that culminated in the Battle of Waterloo. The clash at Waterloo was brutal and decisive. Facing a combined British and Prussian army, Napoleon's forces were defeated, ending his rule and ambitions. He was captured and exiled once more, this time to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic, where he spent his final years in relative isolation. Napoleon's life was a story of extraordinary rises and devastating falls. He was a man of contradictions, a revolutionary who crowned himself emperor, a liberator who waged endless war, a reformer who ruled with absolute power. His impact on France and Europe was profound, shaping politics, law, and warfare for generations. The defeat at Waterloo was more than a military loss. It marked the collapse of Napoleon's grand vision. The battlefield was soaked with the dreams of an empire and the blood of countless soldiers who had followed him with unwavering loyalty. His forces were overwhelmed by the allied armies of Britain, Prussia, and their partners, and the final blow was struck not just by muskets and cannons, but by the weight of history itself. Napoleon's second exile to St. Helena was a descent into isolation and reflection. The remote island in the South Atlantic was a far cry from the palaces and battlefields of Europe where he once held sway. Guarded closely by British forces, he lived out his remaining years cut off from the world he had dominated. Despite this confinement, Napoleon remained defiant, dictating memoirs and defending his legacy with the same fierce determination that had driven his life. The world beyond St. Helena continued to wrestle with the aftermath of Napoleon's reign. His reforms, both praised and reviled, had left an indelible mark. The Napoleonic Code, for example, persisted as a foundation for modern legal systems, emphasizing equality before the law and protecting individual property rights. Many European nations retained reforms introduced during his conquests, even as monarchies were restored. Yet Napoleon's story also served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition. His relentless pursuit of power and expansion ultimately brought devastation to millions and reshaped Europe's political landscape in ways that still resonate. The Congress of Vienna, convened shortly after his defeat, sought to restore balance and prevent another leader from rising to similar heights, redrawing borders and fostering a fragile peace. Napoleon's charisma and complex personality have fascinated historians and the public alike. He was a man capable of extraordinary kindness and ruthless calculation. His leadership inspired loyalty, but also bred fear. His military genius was matched by his political cunning, yet his hubris blinded him to the limits of his power. This duality makes him one of history's most compelling figures, a man both celebrated and condemned. In the centuries since his death in 1821, Napoleon has become a symbol of ambition, revolution, and the pursuit of greatness. Statues, paintings, and literature have immortalized him, while debates about his legacy continue. Was he a hero who modernized France and championed the ideals of the revolution? Or was he a tyrant who betrayed those ideals for personal glory? The answer remains as contested as the man himself. His impact extended beyond France, influencing military strategy, governance, and nationalism around the world. Leaders and generals have studied his campaigns for lessons in leadership and tactics. Nations have grappled with the changes he imposed, some adopting his legal codes and reforms, others resisting the imperial legacy. Napoleon's personal life also adds depth to his story. His marriage to Josephine de Beauharnais was marked by passion and political alliance, though it ended in divorce when she could not provide an heir. His subsequent marriage to Marie-Louise of Austria strengthened his political ties, but could not alter his eventual fate. His relationships with family members, many of whom he placed in positions of power, reveal the dynastic ambitions behind his empire building. Despite his fall, Napoleon's name has endured as a metaphor for ambition and power. Terms like Napoleon complex evoke images of a man who overcame perceived limitations to dominate his world. His story continues to inspire novels, films, and scholarly works, keeping the memory of France's most famous leader alive. The rise and fall of Napoleon Bonaparte is a saga of dramatic contrasts. From a young, obscure officer to the ruler of Europe, from triumph to exile, from dreams of empire to the reality of defeat. It is a testament to the power of human ambition and the unpredictable tides of history. In understanding Napoleon, we confront not only the past, but also timeless questions about leadership, power, and legacy.